YouTube, I'm back with another video. Listen, I just picked up the 8X, but before we get into that, I want to get into this. If you watch a Losi video, they say that these starter boxes will fit, but you got to move it over 1 millimeter. Not true. You can see that this thing is clearly not in the middle. Now, this is loose, so it's typically this way a lot further, the wheel is. So I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to adjust this. Now, before I took the starter box apart and all that, this is just loose in here, so it looks like it's a lot worse than that. It's just not where it's supposed to be. The flywheel rubs. You can see it. There's a big rubber burnout right there. Okay, it's not going to work, guys. They say you can use it, but, I mean, if you want to ruin your shit, go ahead. I don't care. You can buy a new starter box, you know, from whoever makes the universal ones. That's fine, but if you want to spend the money, go ahead. I'm not. So, first of all, first steps in doing this, you take off these two bolts right here. Then the little, that allows you to get to your batteries. Then you pull these two bolts off back here. Take the lid right off. Take your batteries out. Take this out with the 4 screws. If this is the one that you use, or whatever you have in here that's a little gusset or stringer in here, take that out. Take your batteries out, and then these 2 feet on the bottom, and then this bolt here, and that little bolt screw, whatever you want to call it, there, and the whole side will pop off. Then on the bottom of the box on both sides, there's these 3 screws, which are, you know, these 3 screws right here, that go in here. 1, 2, 3, and they're on both sides. 1, 2, 3. You take those out, and this whole thing will come out like that. This whole thing will slide right out of the box. Then you unscrew this one from here. Okay? And then down here, this is just a little male slip-on prong connection right here. And you just pop that off. And there's still going to be some some solder joints on here. Don't worry, just set that to the side. And then you'll have your plate. Now it's going to be these 2 and these 2. And you want to move this whole thing over, like you've seen, 5 millimeters to line up with this hole. It's got to go that way. So there's bolts, or not bolts, I keep calling them bolts. Like, there's little screws, they go in them holes. Just move them over 5 millimeters. Damn it. Like that. Draw a straight line over your holes. Line them up. Get a straight edge. Move them over 5 and then drill them. And then I'm going to do that. I'm going to come back with the finished product. Give me a minute. Alright guys, I put the holes in there. But I want you to notice this part right here, where you have to take your Dremel and notch that for that little hole for the bolt that goes in your cover right here. That's one of these holes. 1, 2, 3, and then you got your 3 along there. Because when you slide it over, it runs into that, and it's kind of protruding. It's like embossed, so it gives that more engagement. And then there's your holes moved over 5 mil, so it's these holes out here. So there you go. So drill those out, and then take whatever you're going to use, a Dremel or whatever, and make sure you sand these smooth so this thing will mount on there flat. Okay. Alright guys, I reinstalled this by screwing it down and then put in these 3 screws. Then I went back and made this connection and that one down there. Now since you moved your wheel over, you're going to have to notch this out. Okay? So that's exactly what I did. And you can see that there's just a little bit of room in there, you know, because I don't know how gone that wheel is. So just in case I do put a new wheel on there, there's plenty of clearance. So we gained some access there. So I'm going to put this lid back on and get these screws put in the side here, just like this side. One there, then you got your feet on the bottom that go in through the bottom. Right back. Okay guys, I'm back again. So let me go over what we did. The box is not put together. I'm going to break it back down to show you the steps, just so we can go back over this. You take off your front two and these back two screws right here, and you can pop this lid off. But before I do, I had to trim the lid back 6.5 millimeters. I'm going to clean that up. You can or you can't. It doesn't matter. If you want to make it look nice, that's good. I took some tin snips, trimmed it back, and then cut this off with a cutoff wheel enough to where it scribed a mark, and then just popped it off with some pliers. It's only aluminum. So we popped the top off. So you can see we trimmed that back. And okay. Autofocus. There we go. Okay, so I cut that back. Nothing crazy. Okay. Now, you've got to cut this out back 6.5 millimeters or whatever you want to do. I'm trying to think. I don't even think. I just marked it with a pencil. I didn't even really measure it out. And then on the bottom, you have to make a couple of indentations for them screws that go in there. Right here. Man, you know that. There we go. There it is. I use a phone, so I'm no photographer. I say it over and over again. Anyway, no video guy. But anyway, you gotta, and let me show you why. But let's go back. When you had the box apart and you had this off, so you screw this back down to your new holes, this part to this part. Then you screw it back to the box, obviously. And then obviously you can see where we remarked the holes and moved it over 5.5 millimeters. Okay. Then you take your side, put your side back on, and you can see why. See, we got the holes lined up, but since it's moved over, it got into the side. So now we can put these screws back in. Those screws are back in. And then you put your foot back on, your 2 feet, and then your things on the side, and then put your lid back on and put your batteries back in. And then I'm going to put it all back together, and we're going to put it back on put the chassis back on the box, and we'll take a look at it then. Alright guys, we wrapped this baby up. Let's go over what we did. We trimmed this back 6.5 millimeters. We had to cut that back inside the box. We moved over 5.5 millimeters and trimmed these back, as well as the bracket that the motor's on that bolts this. Early in the video we showed that. We put it all back together, put our batteries back in. Everything's working good. So now, let's fix her up into the spot there. Oops. So everything's lined up where it would go in the buggy. Okay. Now look at that wheel alignment. It's dead nuts. Let's see. No rubbing. That's from earlier. Does not rub. So there you have it, guys. If you want to modify your stock box, no rubbing, and it's money, huh? Who do you think you're dealing with? There you have it. There you have it. Alright guys, more with that coming soon.